First of all, I want to apologize for not having anything better to present today. All over the weekend I searched and I couldn't find anything that would have been interesting. And I'm looking at the chat. Alex, are you Evil Gunny's son? Or are you Evil Gunny? I'm confused here, man. Hello, everyone, by the way. I'll look in at the chat in a little bit a while if this put me off a little bit. Sorry about that, guys. Anyway, I looked for some interesting articles, some interesting new data, new studies that come out. There wasn't anything. I found a blog post from a paleoanthropologist, which I follow on not just on Twitter, but also on her main site. She's very sound. And I'd recommend you guys following her as well, Paige Madison, if you like archaeology and paleoanthropology. And she counted down basically the top 10 discoveries and studies, etc. so far. I've already covered these, most of them. It'll just be a recap of what I also have done, and a few others that I haven't done, and we can talk about them. The first one is the new history of humanity's origins. The general accepted narrative of African origins is looking more complex than ever. While scientists continue to agree that we evolved from ancestral hominids in Africa, they are starting to think that we are in a more complicated fashion that involves the entire continent. I talked about this not so long ago, both from a Homo sapiens sapiens point of view, but this one is more of Homo sapiens sapiens point of view. Up until just not long ago, last 2 years, it was thought that we basically evolved in East Africa, because that's where we found the oldest fossils of our species, Homo sapiens sapiens, or Homo sapiens, archaic Homo sapiens, be that as it may, us. Recently we've uncovered fossils predating the East African ones, specifically Jebel Irud in Morocco, that pushed back our species emergence to around the between 250 and 350,000 years ago. And there was also a recent 200,000 year discovery, which close to 200,000 years, 190,000 years discovery in the Arabian desert. I covered that. The fingers or the phalanges of us. That's number 9. Of us as well. That shows that we spread out earlier than anticipated. And we stopped in that general area of the Western Asia, Middle East, for a little bit. And 9 and 10 are basically us showing that our emergence as a species from our ancestral species, Antecessor or Heidelbergensis, is more complex than we thought up until now, which is in itself such fascinating and exciting news and discoveries. It's awesome that we are not just a localized small area species, but once we emerge, we spread out on the African continent quite rapidly and quite extensively. That is number 9 and number 10. They're both sort of linked. The one in of the east of Saudi Arabian fossil, I have my video. You guys can have a look at it. It's there. But yes, I might link it into the description. I might link all of these in the description. I just have this article linked so far, but once I finish this stream, I'll link all the videos which I've talked about in the description, so you guys can have a look at your own leisure. Of course, the fossil tiny bones in Saudi Arabia means that we left Africa earlier. We spread out of Africa earlier and farther than we thought. Then the next one, number 8, is I've talked about it specifically. Neanderthals made fire. Of course, they did. There's evidence that even Homo erectus made fire. They used fire at least. But the Neanderthals did make fire, and when I talked also about this, the 60 partially burned digging sticks made by Neanderthals in Spain, which is in one of my videos which I made. As this thing says, it humanizes Neanderthals. Not that they need any humanization from just this. We have in the last at least 10 years expanded our knowledge of Neanderthals exponentially. We know that they made art. We know that they made fire from even chemical type fires, like not just rubbing the proverbial rubbing two sticks together, but they may have even used flint on some metallic element, some metallic stone that gives it a spark. That I've talked about this, the Neanderthals making fire, specifically the burnt digging sticks, which in itself, the digging sticks being preserved so long is in itself an exciting discovery. That is when I first saw this article, I really caught on to it. It was exciting. Number 7 is the shape of the human brain. Now, they've studied a large number of hominin skulls. There were 98 present-day humans, 8 Neanderthals, and 10 other members of the ancient Homo species. And scientists are getting a better idea of how our brain reached its oddly globular shape, because up until us, most of the skulls of our ancestors and our cousin ancestors, etc., were not globular, round ball, sort of like ours was. It was more elongated and without the high forehead, so it would have been a flatter forehead. We are getting to know why our brain got this shape, and it's not capacity-wise, because we even have a slightly smaller cranial capacity than, say, Neanderthals. In fact, the record breaker is a Neanderthal that had 1.5 liter cc cranial cavity. But both Neanderthals and us, we have reached, I think, this is my personal opinion, I only know enough anatomy to be able to use it in archaeology. But that being said, because of the female pelvis and because of the human pelvis of the female kind, not just us, but the pelvis in itself, it is a limiting factor on how big our brains can be, because our skulls cannot be any bigger, or else it would cause much damage to the female of our species giving birth. We are evolving, and now that there is more cesarean sections than there is natural births, who knows, our brains could expand more. But I won't do the obvious joke that I think many of you are thinking. So I won't do that. But you guys can make it as you please. It says in this there are links in this article. You have the links to all basically the articles I used. I haven't covered this one yet, but I might cover it, get it better done. But I don't need to really read that, because we know that the shape of our skull is limited by the birth canal and the pelvic bone structure. So is it more efficient than Neanderthals per se? We don't know. I haven't read the article. maybe in the article it says yes or no, but it could even be a factor in why we survived and the Neanderthals didn't survive. It's just another hypothesis that could be floated out there. But why did we develop the flat forehead, more rounded skull? The article should say, or not. But it occurred between 100,000 and 35,000 years ago, when we sort of settled in our current itineration of our evolutionary anatomy. That's a big word, unneeded. So, next one, number 6. Neanderthal art. I've talked extensively about this, a couple of videos I've made, and they have been dated in Spain. I talked about this one when we first did. That's another example of Neanderthals not being very, very different from us. In fact, we are their cousin race. We are a race of humans. They are a race of humans, and Denisovans are a race of humans. We were the 3 races that lived 60,000 years ago on Earth. Then there was Homo floresiensis, which is a separate species. And even within our development evolutionary path, we may have met Homo Danelli. Oh God, I can't remember his name. But it should be no worries. With another Homo species of humans, which were different from us and smaller than us. So we know that Neanderthals made art. That is obviously they also may have made portable art, because art comes in many, many fashions. So I've mentioned before. There's the paintings on the wall which are permanent, more or less. Then you have, and there's also in Gibraltar, where Neanderthals used stalactites and stalagmites to make a sort of a ceremonial area, which is also in itself an artifact. Then there's the portable arts, like we have the figure, the more associated with our species, Homo sapiens sapiens, the Venus figurines, for example, flutes, which music and is art, decorated hunting instruments like atlatls or spear throwers, which were decorated, that sort of thing. The portable art seems to be pendants, for example, necklace pendant things, broches and that. They may, well, technically you could call them broches, something to put on your body as a decorative fashion. They are all portable art. So we found out that Neanderthals also made art. The next one is one of the most complete fossils of what they've termed Lucy's baby, Australopithecus afarensis, or famous Lucy, one of our possibly earliest ancestors. We know that they were scavengers. We know that they scavenged the hunts of the big game hunters. For example, lions, leopards, and hyena, and even the hunting the wild dogs of Africa, for example. And we found that they found the actual foot. This skeleton was so well preserved that Lucy didn't. We didn't see its full foot, but the Kika baby, it was a fossilized toddler, or the Kiki baby, or Salem, or Lucy's baby, is amazingly well preserved. Scientists just published a closer look at its foot. They found that the baby's toe is slightly curled, good for tree climbing. So we may have to think that Australopithecus afarensis was not just a ground living hominid, but would climb frequently. Maybe that's how it escaped its own predators, because they were hunted by the main predators of Africa: lions, tigers. What do I say tigers for? Lions, leopards, hyenas, and other carnivorous animals. So yeah, that was quite an exciting discovery. Number 4, we're dating fossils at Atapuerca. Atapuerca is very close to where I live. It's only about 450 kilometers, 450 to 500 kilometers from where I live in Spain, north and northwestern Spain. There's a superb date site where the continuous human occupation from around close to 1 million years to modern times. And we've finally got direct dates for our ancestor, Homo antecessor, which has been dated to 772,000 to 949,000 years old. And antecessor, he most likely evolved from Homo erectus, and we know that he is our ancestor, and not just our ancestor, but also Neanderthal and Denisovan's ancestor. So he's the last common ancestor. And so they may have butchered so they were very excited at that date because it's quite old, and it is just how much we have improved. This dating is not just the dating in itself. It's how much we have improved our methods of dating our fossils, etc. Because once we get reliable dates, we can get a much better picture on our history and evolution. And we are going to develop them so much. We're going to push back the boundaries, not just by the dates, but the dates that we discover. So don't be surprised if in the future I make a program where they pushed our own species, Homo sapiens sapiens, back sometimes, and that we expanded out of Africa faster than we have known until yet. It will not rewrite history or our evolutionary or whatever they say. It will not be a rewrite. It will be just added knowledge. So be prepared for if you ever guys see and I miss it, something said our evolution has been rewritten. They found fossil X that states to X, Y, Z years. No, it's not a rewriting of our evolutionary history or anything. It's just adding knowledge, pushing it back. There's no need to rewrite. Just adds to it. Okay. Then there's they found the hominins in the Philippines here. Philippines, as you guys know, is an island. It's never been connected to the mainland Eurasia, and they found pushed the date of hominins there to around 700,000 years ago, and they would have been most likely Homo erectus, or an evolutionary step after Homo erectus, because we know from East Asian fossils, erectus had quite a good variation. Java man and Peking man, Chukutian man, as it's more or less technical, where it was found in Chukutian cave in China, Peking man, and Java man was found in Java. They are both Homo erectus, but they are quite distinct. Even time span, there's a time span difference. They're quite distinct. You can tell them apart. So this 700,000 years date for hominins, and it's slightly indirect because it was a butchering of a rhino, and it could have been, as it says, Homo erectus, or maybe even a species closely related to our little hobbits, Homo floresiensis, but Homo floresiensis was short, was small. It was only about a meter and a bit tall, and the rhinoceros would have been much bigger. So maybe the island hypothesis, where you put species on islands, mammals, big game, big animals, they shrink because of the resources. That's a hypothesis. I sort of covered this, if I'm not mistaken. I may have covered this. I think I have. So yeah. Then we have number 2. Again, coming back to us, Homo sapiens or Homo sapiens, the Miss Leah cave jaw, and he was more or less in January when it was published. The cave in Miss Leah in Israel, and again, it's of our species. He's been dated to 177,000 to 194,000 years ago. That's how old it is. At first, it was thought to be possibly Ancestor or Neanderthal, but it's been dated. It's been emerged that it is our species. Again, it's not rewriting history. It's just pushing back our knowledge that we expanded earlier, which is awesome. And this is the oldest example of our species outside of Africa. He's quite not that far contemporary to the Homo East African Rift Valley species, specimens from us that show that we were in East Africa 200,000 years ago. These are just not that far later. So, and that's, you see a picture of it there. Number 2, a complete stratigraphical. Number 2 is a complete stratigraphical sequence that pushes back hominin outside of Africa to quite a far time. Up until now, in Georgia, in there's not Tbilisi, I can't remember it now, but this discovery, though, was dated to 2.1 million years ago. Now, supposedly, Homo erectus emerged around the 2.2 million, 1.9 million years ago, from the oldest ones that we found in Africa, and close by in Georgia, around 1.9 million years ago. But this one pushes it back to 2.1 million years ago. And they found not just they found the stone tools and some other fossil material in this completely dated, beautifully stratigraphic sequences in Shenzhen. So again, we are pushing the boundaries of our discoveries and pushing back our knowledge to even further back in time. The more we discover, the more exciting discoveries we will find. And that's number 1. So basically, I'll end it here. I apologize for this being such a weak stream. There was just nothing exciting. It's August, and as Paige Madison in the beginning says, there's not much happening around. Everyone's mostly possibly having on holidays, etc. But they're also doing campaigns, archaeological campaigns everywhere in the world. They're getting students, volunteer, etc. So who knows, in autumn to winter, especially in winter, because they have to analyze all the discoveries and clean them, analyze them, catalog them, etc. So I would say about in late in the year and early next year, we will have some much more awesome discoveries. And I will end it here. Just I want to say hello to everyone in the chat. Yeah, Hello, guys. Hello, Davey. Hi, Modwine. And anyway, I might do something during the week. I don't know. But I start my holidays on Thursday, so maybe next week I'll have something better prepared because obviously, um, I will obviously be less occupied than I am at work. So yeah, no worries, Dave. You guys talk shit all you like. It's awesome to at least if you guys in the chat. So anyway, Beach, yes. What's your question? Beach price. Yes, 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 Beach. I did. Yes, he was the one that specific flute. I'm not saying they're all. That specific flute that is mentioned, and in fact, I even embarrassed myself in the academic that studied that, and I didn't embarrass myself as much as mundane math, by the way, but yes, that example was a hyena mark, but there are other examples which are still unknown. They may have been made by Neanderthals, but as I said, those other ones are still up in the air. But that one exactly was specifically the denture marks from a hyena. Yes, absolutely. Yes, there are other flutes. Um, I think I have. I think I did a sort of in my video. I did not cover that one that had the puncture marks. I had other ones in my example. So yes, that one. Well, that was embarrassing for me. Honestly, that was completely embarrassing, and I feel ashamed. And I really unreservedly apologize to that paleoanthropologist, a biologist, and she, following her, she did not get triggered, and I was really mean because I'm bad. I'm really mean when it comes to defending science. And at that moment I did not. I have no excuses, and I apologized to her, and she took it well. So yes. Thank you all. Anyway, thank you all for coming along, and until next time. And oh damn. Anyway, thank you all, and good night.